Oh, okay. Hello, everyone. Good evening. Thank you for joining us. Welcome to this, our 21st of hopefully many episodes of Bard Advice, a D&D slash RPG slash life in general podcast where I, Yazik, Charles, Chaz, the Bard, the DM, do my best to dispense advice about anything you might ask about. I hope everyone is doing well. Thank you for joining. Hey, everybody. It is indeed Cinco de Mayo. I didn't even realize that. And Revenge of the Fifth. You know, if you like the Star Wars stuff. You know, I actually recently just saw Return of the Jedi in theaters, which was really fun. Although it was not the original film. It was the remake that they did, I guess, after the prequels, where they added a bunch of kind of weird stuff and they turned the Sarlacc into an Audrey 2 monster. I don't know. Weird way to start things off. Let's remind everyone, as we would like to do at the top of the podcast, to please send questions to bardadvice@gmail.com. It also looks like bardadvice, if that helps you remember. Please send those questions there. I've been getting more lately, so I appreciate it. Keep it up. Even if you've sent them before, keep sending them. It's much appreciated. I also really like the multiple questions, because those are really cool because I can continue to use them, continue to draw from them. And last week I used one that was months and months old. So do that, please. Send them to bardadvice@gmail.com. Also, if you want to get merch, you can do so at manshorts.com. Pick you up some merch. And my music stuff, you can contribute to directly via PayPal, Cash App, or Venmo, all of which are Yazik, Yahzick. Hello, everyone. Hope you're all doing well. We are in the midst of the NBA playoffs, and while I do not have anything specifically planned for Art Corner this week, actually, before I get into the playoffs, I would just like to remind everyone, I was speaking with Anthony House Beats, of the infamous House Beats this week, and he let me know that he is currently working on a Street Fighter themed album. Geez, I hope that that's correct. I'm pretty sure that that's what he said. Let me double check. Let me confirm in my messages that that's what it is. But I think that that's what it is. Yeah, it's a Street Fighter remix album. So he's going to be dropping that soon. Keep your eyes out for it if you like the stuff that House makes. I do. I think it's great. Thank you very much, Nebraska Because, for the memberships, as usual, coming in clutch with those. Much appreciated. Those always help. And thanks to all of anybody that does any of those kind of things, whether it's membership or super chats or Patreon. Certainly appreciated. If you can rate the podcast on whatever platform you listen to it on, that's appreciated. And honestly, just being here, and listening is much appreciated. So thank you. But yeah, check out House. Keep an eye out for that Street Fighter remix album that's coming out soon. I do just want to speak a little bit about the playoffs, only because I felt bad. Last week, one of the questions was who I thought was going to go to the finals, and I didn't really answer that. I feel like I got sidetracked talking about other sports in general. So I did just want to talk about that briefly for anybody who does care, notably the person who asked the question last week. So this is where we are in the playoffs. We're down to the last 8. Interesting to me, and notably, they are each one of the seeds, which I don't know if that's ever happened. If it hasn't, it hasn't been in a long time, meaning that the Nuggets are a number 1 seed, the Heat were a number 8 seed, the Lakers were a number 7 seed. So like within these 8 teams, every seed is represented, which is kind of weird simulation theory stuff. Also, we still are dealing in the playoffs with these 2 players who, you know, whether you want to admit to it or not, whether you like them or not, LeBron James and Steph Curry are the best players in the last 20 years, and quite arguably in the top 5 all time with the kind of stuff that they've been doing, not only in their careers over the last 20 years, but like as of late. The kind of stuff that they're doing is just insane, out of control. And it's something that I think that even if you're not a basketball fan, it's cool to see. So As for who I think is going to go, I think we could see any kind of number of combinations. Let me see the. I mean, obviously we can, but I don't think you can rule out Jimmy Butler and the Heat. I don't think that who won today. Actually, I don't even know who won today. The Celtics 76ers game. Oh, it's still happening. Oh, it looks like the Celtics. Well, the Celtics are up, and there's 3 minutes left in the fourth. So if the Celtics take that game, they go up 2-1. I think that I don't see anybody in the East stopping the Celtics, including the Heat. And so I think that unless the Warriors can beat the Lakers, we're going to see a Lakers-Celtics final. Oddly enough, somebody noted that earlier this year, the NBA released this thing just like it was a promotional thing. It was just like marketing, and they essentially said that, the Celtics and the Lakers have 17 championships each. And then it was marketing for the finals, which begins on June 1st. So it's like, all right, I don't want to go full bore conspiracy with like it's rigged stuff, but I mean, come on. It seems to be. And besides, I'd like to see that. I think a Lakers Celtics finals would be really cool. So I think it's going to be Celtics Lakers. I could be totally wrong. It could be like Denver Miami. I don't know. I feel like Denver is like a sleeper, even as a 1 seed. I feel like Denver is a team that people aren't really talking about because everybody's talking about LeBron and Steph and then the Celtics and the Sixers. But, it wouldn't surprise me at all for Denver to go all the way. But I think it's going to be, my top 5 GOAT list when it comes to basketball players. I would say I think LeBron has an edge over Michael. That's just my opinion. I used to not think that way. I used to think that Michael was the GOAT and that was the end of the conversation. But you just can't deny what LeBron has accomplished. And also, not always having the backup that he needed, right? Like, obviously he had D Wade and Bosh in Miami, but I don't know how big of a help and contribution Kyrie and Kevin were to him winning in Cleveland. And I don't know how big of a contribution others were when he won in the bubble. I just think, and then, now, of course, he's past the all-time scoring. So it's just, I don't know. It's really, really hard to deny. He's almost 40, and he's going out there consistently just dropping 30, 40, 50 points on people. I mean, Steph is kind of in that same boat. I think that Steph could very well be in the same conversation, particularly if he gets another ring or two. But I think with Steph, you have the best shooter of all time. I think with LeBron, he's the best of all time. And then beyond that, it would be LeBron, Michael, Kobe. Maybe Shaq at 4 for me. And then maybe like a kind of a tie at 5th between Magic and Larry. I don't know. It's tough. But I think that LeBron is the best. Write a Reddit about how wrong I am. Well, hey, some people might, and that's fine. They're welcome to do that. Sorry to go off topic on RPG stuff to so much basketball, but I just wanted to address those things since I didn't last week. So, okay, let's move on. Let's have a question. Let's get into some actual talk about D&D, in particular this new playtest stuff, because I got another question about that. And let's see. So the first question, and I am relatively prepared, although I need to go ahead and open these things that I made. I did a little prep work this week, gang, so not only do I have a list of names, but I have notes that are relevant to what's going on, which is surprising for me. So, also, I'm not going to talk about it this week, but just to put a pin in it for next week, because I will be talking about it at length, I recently discovered VR chat, which you do not need a VR headset for, by the way. That's going to be a really fun world. I feel like I'm going to put the next 18 months of my life into that. We'll see. But hey, maybe we can make it kind of interactive and stuff. I'm thinking about setting up a Discord for this pod. So, hey, maybe somebody like River or somebody that I'm already friends with on Discord could help with that or would be willing to. I don't know. Just throwing it out there. But let's get into this question. So, the first question is from Oh, no. I said that I have the names. Okay, here we go. The first question is from Greg. Greg asks, did you see what they did to the wizard in the playtest material? And what's your opinion on modify and create spell? So the short answer is yes, I did see what they did with the wizard in the playtest stuff. I last week mentioned that I hadn't gotten too much of a chance to dive into it. I have since gotten some time to read into it a bit more. Let's just talk about the modify and the create spell, because that is, and we've got an episode of the Mann short show coming up, a D&D edition that's coming up. I won't say what it is, but it's addressed in there, the idea of this kind of thing with create spell and modify spell. So let me just pull this up really quickly. If I go back to the question and then turn this on, there we go. We have the window capture now, so we can see what I'm looking at. Let me zoom in a bit too. How do I do that? There we go. Okay, so let's talk about this. So modify spell. It's a 4th level transmutation spell, ritual, wizard. Casting time a minute, range self, instantaneous duration. Using arcane formulas in your spellbook, you magically alter one arcane spell you have prepared. You can change the spell's color, sound, and smell, and you can make one of the following modifications to the spell. So you can do a lot with this, and some people might be quick to scream that it's broken. I don't know that anything is really broken in D&D so much as it all comes down to what everybody's there to do and what everybody agrees upon as to what's fair. Because I've found most of my D&D career as a player has been in homebrew scenarios, a lot of which had a lot of table rules or house rules or whatever you want to call it that I didn't realize were not part of the in-game mechanics, such so that in the course of my career making D&D content online, I've encountered a lot of people who have called stuff out or have questioned, like, well, what are you talking about? That's not a thing. So it's a feat in 3/5. Doing the modify spell, it sounds cool, but I'm sure someone can break it pretty hard. Oh yeah, no doubt. Well, I mean, considering what you can do, what you can change, right? So you can change the components, the concentration, the damage type, the range, the ritual, the targets. So does that mean that you can remove concentration? If the spell requires concentration, damage can't break your concentration on the spell. That seems a bit insane for things like prismatic wall or any kind of concentration spell, I guess. It seems a little bit overkill. And then what is the other one? There's modify spell. Oh, you know what? I've got to go here and then turn this off. Oh, create spell. I don't know why I couldn't remember that. Let's go look at that. Sorry, gang. I'm trying to... Oh, yeah. That would be up here because C comes before M. Oh, I already passed it. Jeez, how did I do that? Book of Shadows, Chaos Bolt. Create spell. Synthesizing your arcane knowledge and power, you strive to create a new spell. To succeed, you must concentrate for 1 hour and meditate on the spell you just altered with modify spell. Otherwise, the spell fails. If you succeed, you must start casting scribe spell within the next 10 minutes and add the altered spell to your spellbook. Once the spell is in your spellbook, it becomes one of your known spells. It gains the wizard source tag rather than the arcane tag, and it gains the name of your choice. So the only other thing about this, beyond just how can people break it, I think it begs the question, then why have any other spells at all? Yeah? If you can just... Now, alter spell, I guess that I understand. But the idea that you can alter a spell and then create it as a new spell... I think of like Oblivion, right? And once you get to a level where you can really start creating your own spells, is anybody casting like regular fireball or whatever after you can create your own spells? And if no one is, then they really only exist as sort of an archive for people to draw from, a well, if you will, a spell well. And that's cool too. Maybe you do it that way. But if you're just altering and creating, I don't know. I just feel like at that point any of the spells just serve as assets. Create mushroom cloud. From a design standpoint, I don't really see why those are two different spells. I don't either. That's another thing too. That's a good point, Flint. Like, I don't know why they're two spells either. It just seems that they would be, one would be part of the other. It seems that one of them requires the other, so I don't know why you wouldn't just make it all one piece. But I don't know. I think it's okay. I think it's a cool idea. And trying to remind myself that this is all beta and playtest and nothing's like quote unquote set in stone with what's going on. But I think that they need to rethink, if they're gonna do it, it should just be the one. It's confusing to have two spells. And it also is limiting for a spell that seems to be giving power. It's like, well, if you have to have create spell to use your modified spell, that's kind of a pain. Couldn't you just get there in one spell? Seems you should be able to. Seems that it should just be called like alter spell or modify spell, and that's it. Wizards exclusive. The sorcerer and warlock only get the normal version of spells, and to a lesser extent, bards, certain schools only. See, that's another thing I think that's a little silly too. Like, what, you're just going to give it to the wizard? That seems unfair. You can't have, you don't want a plucky bard to be able to create his own spell? I don't know. It seems that either everybody does it, or because then why would I be any other spellcaster then other than RP? If I'm somebody who wants to contribute mechanically in terms of combat, and the wizard can modify existing and or create new spells, yeah, I'm going to do that. The bard at least has the RP appeal of the arts, but why would anybody ever even play a sorc or a warlock after that if you could create your own spell? Don't know. Just seems like a waste to me. I'd rethink it. Back to the drawing board on that one. It's a cool idea in theory, but it falls apart pretty quickly under analysis in terms of how people are going to abuse it, and then also just use it to replace everything then. At that point you're thinking of it of an entirely different way of approaching the mechanic, where it's just that, hey, as a wizard, you get to create spells, and you can create your spell, and you have your thing, and you just pull from a pool as to concentration, verbal, semantic, whatever, duration, target, etc. Magic missile learned as fire damage, then becomes whatever you want as a created spell. And clerics, yeah. And druids. I didn't even think of druids. Yeah, it seems silly for wizards to be, and maybe it's because it's their namesake, who knows, but it seems silly of them to be like, look at all this ultimate spell power that only one caster gets. I always thought that the idea of 5e was to make spellcasters more viable, to get people more interested in playing them, and I think that that's worked. The bard in 5e is buff in comparison to the 3-5 bard. And sure, I mean, there are differences you can find in between those editions specifically, but I think that overall, it's a lot easier. I won't say it's easier. I'd say it's a lot less dangerous to be a spellcaster in 5e. You can hold your own if you have to. 3.5 kind of required you to, if you were playing that type of character, be part of a party, at least early level. So thank you for the question, Greg. Let's move on to... Oh, sorry, Scapelli, I missed the first one. If they're reworking spell damage type to be determined when learned or in their spellbook to be flexible, then this creates a new flexibility afterwards. Yeah. I don't know if they thought it all the way through. We'll just say that. But thank you for the question, Greg. Let's move on to the next one. This next question we have is from Jesse. And Jesse asks, have you seen the Mario movie? Which Nintendo movie would you like to see next? I've not seen the Mario movie, but I mean, I've seen the Mario movie. You know what I mean? I know what's going on. I saw the Jack Black Peaches music video, and I've not actually seen it. I'm sure that it's good. I've heard great things. I know that it made $100 bajillion. It's not surprising. And this is just the beginning for them. Technically, you could point to Sonic as the beginning of that metaverse, or multiverse, rather. But it's coming. More of them are coming. So I made some notes about this. So the one that I would like to see, I made a note for ones that I would want to see as Kid Icarus and Zelda, obviously, but also like Fire Emblem. I think that would be pretty cool. It depends on how it's done, right? It's annoying because you know that it's almost always going to be presented in such a way that it's family friendly so that the whole family can go see it. I just think it would be so cool for there to be like a rated R live action Metroid. That would be so cool. Somebody fund that, please. How about this? Can we make like a subsidiary of the Nintendo Film Studio that's like Nintendo After Dark? And so we can make all of the cool, fun, family fun movies that are animated, and then we can make live-action dark versions of them too, because that would be super cool. Dude, like a dark version of Kid Icarus. You get somebody to play Pit, probably like Timothée Chalamet or something. But you know what I mean? I think that would be really cool. As for the animation stuff, I think we're going to see a Toads movie. You know, like I said, I've not seen the movie, but I imagine that Toad's in there cuting it up, and the Toads in general. So I wouldn't be surprised to see a Toads movie like Minions. Someone I'd heard on TikTok before mention a Luigi's Mansion movie, which that seems like a no-brainer, right? You release that at Halloween, millions and billions of dollars. A Bowser origin movie, you know, Jack Black's a genius. Just give that, just turn the camera on and tell that guy to go, and he'll make you millions of dollars. So it wouldn't surprise me to see that. As for other properties, definitely Zelda. I think we'll see Metroid. We'll see Star Fox, Kirby, all of that stuff. What I would do if I were king of the Nintendo movie studio is I would do all of those that I just mentioned and more. And if you really wanted to drag it out, you could do as many as you think you would be able to pull off from the Super Smash Brothers games, meaning individuals, right? Individual films, so characters that you could pull from to do their own movie. Like imagine if they made like a Punch-Out movie or something. They could make that cute. You could write that in a way where it was like you could give them a sidekick and make it a full-fledged story that's about like overcoming your fears and stuff, and that would be really cool. And then Mike Tyson maybe could get involved. That'd be really fun. Pitfall, the movie, Contra. Yeah, there's a bunch of stuff. There's stuff we've not even thought of, I'm sure, that we'll see over the next decade as Nintendo cranks out these movies and goes to the next level when it comes to just merchandise and revenue in general. I've not seen it, but I'm sure it's good. I'll tell you what, if they make a Zelda or a Kid Icarus movie, I'm going to those. I'll be there. I will show up for the stuff that I really like. It's not to say that I don't like Mario. It's just that, you know, again, I don't mean to make it sound like the film is bad. It's just a film that I feel like I've seen without seeing, if that makes sense. If you know, you know. Like, I don't need to see it to see it. I can see what they're doing. I'm sure it's really good. All of the people that are involved are super talented. So I'm excited to see how that universe expands and who else gets involved. Because, you know, Wario, Waluigi, we've got a lot of other characters to introduce to and learn about. Pondering which characters Smash could have after the first game. Oh, yeah, I remember those days. Dude, I remember just like when you unlocked the extra characters, when you like unlocked Luigi, it was like, what? Yeah. They've got a lot of money to be made in the next few years, so. Thank you for the question, Jesse. Let's keep moving. Oh, I'm surprised you didn't just go for Jack Black. John Leguizamo as Violator in Spawn. Oh, man. Yeah. It was unfortunate to see him being salty about the new movie. Because I always kind of liked John Leguizamo. I remember The Pest. And then he was in that movie Empire. He's been in a bunch of just like random goofy stuff, but I don't know. I think he's a little out of pocket with the stuff he said about the Mario movie. It's like, hey man, the movie the one in the 90s was really, really bad. And there's also a lot of negative stories surrounding that set in general and just what the general vibe of everything was. So it's deeper than it just being a bad movie. There's a lot of trauma, I think, that went involved in producing it. But let's keep on keeping on. Thank you, Jesse, for the question. Let's move on to this next one. This one is from Miles. Miles asks, I saw a Reddit post about playing D&D without dice. What do you think? Are dice necessary to the game or to the fun? Congrats on 20 episodes. Thank you, Miles. Yes, we are indeed on episode 21, so that feels good. So, whether or not dice are needed, I think that I'm going to be careful about how I answer this because while I don't think that dice themselves are required and or necessary for an RPG being a game that has an objective and a story. Dice themselves. However, I do think that you need some mechanic of chance. Just because it's kind of realistic that way. The universe is random. So I think that if you remove the element of chance from your story, and it kind of removes the randomness of it, and it makes it not as realistic or human. So I think that the answer is yes. You don't necessarily have to play with dice, but I would recommend, if you're playing an RPG, to play with some sort of a device that allows for chance. It doesn't even have to be dice. Some people are sensitive to sounds, like me. I am. It drives me insane when I'm editing, and depending on the dice that's being used and how loud it's thrown, that stuff's loud. So maybe some people are just not about that, and they want to do it a different way. You could use cards if you want to. I saw a post on Reddit myself. I also saw a post on Reddit where, and maybe it was that same one, where somebody was talking about using cards instead of dice. Right, so you essentially would separate the suits and the colors, and then that would allow for you to have, this is a D20, this is a D10, this is a D12, etc. Now, I am pro dice. I'm seeing people in the chat like, dice. I am pro dice. I love dice. I think most D&D players love dice. even if they don't use them, even if they win a whole game without rolling, I think that it's nice that the dice are there just because it's kind of a component of it. And also, in a game that is very mental, very based in imagination, it's one of the few physical components that you have to let you know that you're doing it. So it's why minis are so popular, right? It's a physical representation of this game that otherwise is largely just verbal and mental. You have physical books, but those only serve to read for the content. There are few physical components of the game, and dice is one of them. So, and like I said, to just reiterate on the chance thing, you know, you can sit around and play D&D without dice and without any type of chance device. I would venture to say that that's just storytelling. At that point, you're just telling a story. And that's fine. You can do whatever you want with your time. But I think that what makes it a game is the element of chance and or skill that I think the dice provide. I think you can provide it in different ways, whether it's cards, whether it's rock, paper, scissors. Obviously, throughout the career of making the D&D editions, we have done several different clever jokes and ways of rolling dice, specifically with Sarah. I know that at one point we did a bit with her where her dice were just getting more and more ridiculous to a point where in one of the episodes she was just literally flipping a coin, but still like getting 20 or 17 or whatever. So in that sense, I don't think that the dice are so important, but I do think that it's important that there's some form of chance and skill. However you want to do that. Yeah, like a Pop-O-Matic Trouble Popper. Oh, dude, I remember that game. Trouble, Pop-O-Matic Trouble. It's fun getting into trouble. Dude, have I talked about this on this podcast before, about how loud the commercials were in the 90s? And I know that they passed legislation about it, but it's just insane to think back to Saturday mornings and the dude screaming at the top of his lungs about super soakers. And it was like, this is just normal. I'm 8 years old and I'm watching this. And my mom is in the other room, and now I'm going to want to get this thing because this dude screamed it into my face. It just seems really aggressive. Anyway, that's where I am with the dice, with the no dice. Dice or no dice. I'm team dice. ChatGPT edition. We did have an AI edition wherein that script was not 100%, but probably about 85 to 90% composed by ChatGPT in a roundabout way, right? It's not like it gave me the script, more so that I had a conversation with it about the episode, and through that conversation built the episode. So there is an AI edition that is based on that, but I do want to get a little more into that world too. So thank you, Miles. Moving right along to go to question number 4. And this one's from River. Good old River, who isn't here, but that's okay, because he can listen to this at his leisure. River asks, which do you prefer, side quests or running the main story quest? Definitely depends on what we're talking about. I would say across the board as a player, I'm a side quest guy. I like meandering off the path a bit, but I will say that only to the extent that it serves the main quest or contributes to the larger plot in some way. So, because I'm the type of I'm a meddler, I'm a troublemaker in real life, but even more so as a player in D&D or any kind of RPG, even if it's like a video game, right? Like I've been playing Skyrim lately. I would say that I like side quests depending on the, a lot of it, it's like, is it a means to an end? What am I getting out of doing the side quest? And ultimately, is it affecting the main plot here? So in D&D, when I go off the beaten path, it's not necessarily just to troll. I mean, that's part of it, right? Part of it's just funny to poke the bear of the party and or the DM. But part of it is also moving the story along in maybe other interesting ways. So it's not necessarily where it's just like, oh yeah, we just, I've always found myself playing whether it was video games or D&D. Video games I have more of a memory of, just probably because I've played more of them and have more of a visual memory of. But I like doing the side stuff. But if it's just like a throwaway side quest, who cares? Like if it's just like, oh no, my chicken's stuck on the roof. Get lost. Miss me with that. I don't have time for that. But I do like the idea of a side quest where, I've been playing the Assassin's Creed Odyssey game lately. And I think that's really cool because you're kind of playing both sides. You kind of go back and forth, and not all, but some of the side quests seem to make a bit of a difference in things. And I don't know, maybe that's placebo. It could just be the way that they're written. But either way, I think that the ultimate goal is that everything that you do means something, I would think. You can give it meaning however you want to. That's your call. Waiting to play the new Zelda. Yeah. Has it come out yet already? Or has it not released yet? Let's see what chat's saying about the side quests, where we are on main quest or side quests. Side quests that flesh out the world, even if they don't contribute to the main story. True, that's true. As a player, it depends. As a DM, I'm neutral, but hope they eventually get onto the main quest. Some players seem to want to railroad into the main quest, while others seem to just want to ignore it. I think you can kind of allow the meandering to be the locomotive to your next step. It doesn't necessarily have to. I've talked about that before. Sometimes people get tripped up where it's like, oh, man, if they would have kept going down Main Street, they would have run into the Bugbear Academy, where they train bugbears to kill people. But since they didn't go down Main Street, they're not going to go there. And it's like, dude, just move the Bugbear Academy. If they let them meander and do their thing, but then, and I guess that would be considered railroading, but I don't know. I think it's just, it's a complicated marriage of free will and predetermined plot, right? Probably why there's a lot of crossover between D&D and wrestling, because that's what that is. It's just like a complex marriage of man, totally lost my train of thought. Just went off a cliff. But you know what I'm saying. As a DM, I like to let the players vote on things to add or subtract from the campaign, so it feels like it's more their own campaign and not just something I made. Yeah, that's really cool. You definitely want to have player participation in building of the world. Why not just leave them in place but drop hints from NPCs? Yeah, you can do that too. You don't necessarily have to move them. It's on the 12th that it drops. I see. When a group or the group decides to play, I build activities, but I just steer the chaos and watch what unfolds. Yeah, we talked about that on an episode, steering the chaos. So, yeah, I'd say that overall I'm a side quest person, just naturally, but if it serves the main quest, then it's even better, I guess. That's in a perfect world, all of my side quests contribute to the main quests. Not necessarily good, maybe badly, but in my head, every side quest contributes to the main quest. So it's kind of the best of both worlds, like Miley Cyrus. All right, thanks for the question, River. I've got 3 more questions, but I've also got a follow-up this week, and the follow-up is from the last question. So we'll be able to just kind of do all of those there at once. But this next question is about music, and the person who sent it did not They didn't sign the email, and I didn't want to suppose or assume based on what their email was what they wanted to be called, so we'll just refer to them as unknown. But unknown asks, what would your advice be for someone just starting out in rap? And where did your name come from? I think you said it before, but I forgot. Thank you for the time and the rhymes. Well, thank you, unknown. So, first of all, let's do the rap name quickly. I have spoken about that, I think, before, but just a quick recap. So, Yazik is a name I gave myself and decided on that I would use myself when I started rapping in 2009. It means tongue, and there's actually, I think, a word, I don't know if it's a word that's in Russian or maybe like Italian. I'm not sure, but there is a word that's very similar that means tongue, but in this specific way that it's spelled and pronounced, it's from the film and book A Clockwork Orange, which the novel was written by Anthony Burgess. The film was made by Stanley Kubrick in the 70s. It's what I think it's my favorite story of all time. I think it's one of the better stories of all time, just in terms of an analysis of what is man and what is good and evil and what is free will, etc. It's trip. It's super intensive, and I don't know. I've always really liked it as a film, and so in that film and in the book, moreover, Anthony Burgess, the writer of the novel, developed what he called NADSAT, which was essentially this kind of pseudo language that he created that was kind of a mixture of different languages and different slangs. I think that it was heavily based in Russian, but he probably made his changes here and there. Anyway, all that's to say that Yazik means tongue. I thought it looked cool. I thought it sounded cool, and at the time it didn't serve me. And sometimes it still doesn't serve me because people are like, what the hell? What is that? And they don't know how to spell it. But the good thing about that, what works in my favor for that, is that I'm the only one. I'm like Tigger. So you can go search Yazik, and it's pretty much just me or Anthony Burgess and Clockwork Orange. Like, there's nobody. I usually don't have to compete much for space with that name. I usually don't have to like add a number to the username. It's usually just available, which is nice. So the other part of the question that you asked was, do you have advice for someone who's just starting out in rap? And I made some notes because I do. My advice is to listen to as much as you can of rap just throughout history. Like, I'd say learn the history of hip hop. The only reason that I say that is because that's the route that I went, and I felt that it served me well. When I started to... the first rap I ever made, I made it as a joke. And when I started to take rap seriously, I was like, okay, I really want to take this seriously. And so I went back and actually studied the history of the music, the culture that's surrounding the music, reading biographies on rappers like Tupac and Biggie. So I'd say that just studying it in general will help you understand it. It will help you find what your voice is in hip hop or in rap. But I mean, there's a relatively distinct difference between rap and hip hop, but that's kind of a different conversation. I put here, get comfortable listening to the same beat over and over until it gets stuck in your head and you can write to it without hearing it. That's a thing that happens with me a lot. I also put, don't lie. I try my best to keep it real, as it were. In fact, I don't even really consider myself a rapper. I consider myself a writer who raps. But I put embellishment and metaphor is one thing, but staying true to yourself, that's what hip-hop's about. In my estimation, hip-hop is an expression of one stepping into one's power as an individual in resistance to anyone foolish enough to attempt to suppress it. That's what I think. So that's what I would do. And I think that you'll find your voice as you go if you want to, write things down. You don't necessarily have to. I will say that I physically wrote down, even if you type it, even if you have like a Word doc or a Google Doc or something, a notepad. I do that less now, although I've been doing it a lot as I prepare and build out this third album with those lyrics. But in terms of writing them, you do eventually get, like, I think, to a place where it just kind of is in your head all the time. And a lot of that, I think, is just from drilling it. I mean, dude, the amount of times that I have listened to Outkast's ATLiens all the way through, I wouldn't believe it. If I could pull up stats for how many times I've listened to Enter the 36 Chambers or any of that early, I'd say like pretty much from like 1988 to like 1999 is the best stuff, in my opinion. But it depends on what works for you. I'd say just listen to the artists that move you, and not necessarily try to emulate that, but try to channel that into your own stuff. You know what I mean? And good luck to it. Rap's fun. I have a lot of fun doing it. Good luck to you. If you ever make stuff or have an album or something, maybe it'll end up on Art Corner one day. Who knows? To be honest, when I first heard Yazzik, I thought it was a combination of Yahtzee and Sick. The Clockwork Orange reference is honestly cooler, though. Oh, well, thank you. Yeah. It just was a cool word, I think. And I was kind of obsessed with the fact that it's called tongue, because I've always talked fast. I've always talked a lot. My mom will tell you I would speak from the moment my eyes opened, she'd say. So, and I'm still that way now. And not only do I speak a lot, but I speak quickly, and rapping even more so. So I think it's really fitting. And my first mixtape was the tongue tape. So there you go. But thank you for the question, Unknown. Hopefully that gives you a little bit of a direction. Best of luck to you. Moving on to question number 6, who is from, which this question is from a Print King. Print King asks, do you think 3D printing will be the death of miniature retailers? Thank you for the question, Print King. Not so simply. So I've got notes about this. What did I have here? AI is going to bring on the death of most all retailers, at least as we know them to exist now. Across the board, I don't know how much which industry the retailer is in. These stores, as they exist now, are essentially just going to be warehouses. Within a decade, the idea of walking through a store to pick out your items will be antiquated. The bigger problem with retails, I think, is going to be justifying their reason for existing beyond just stocking product, beyond just being a warehouse. Encouraging people to hang out in places. They talk about that in sociology, right? You have like your home is your first place. And then for most people, their work is their second place. And then there's usually like a third place, whether that's a bar or church or whatever you do, you have like a third place that you go to. And for a lot of people, it's FLGSs. It's these local gaming stores, these RPG stores. I don't know. So two things. I don't know that stores currently are relying too much on. I think there's always going to be a market for people buying minis outright, right? Because there's always going to be people like me who, I am always the guy. Here's a fun fact about me. I am always the guy that will pay the thing instead of doing the thing, within reason, right? Depending on what it is. But like if let's say parking, let's say I came up to a parking lot and they were like, hey, $5 to park Or $15 will do it for you. Your boy's valeting. Like, I'll pay that extra $10 to not have to do the thing. So, and there's also a lot of people like me, and some who are maybe even more so lazy about the idea of taking the time to learn the thing, to do the thing, as opposed to just buying it. So I think there always will be a market of people who just want to buy the thing. As for FLGSs go, or just game stores in general, like I said, I think that they're bread and butter probably already, right? Because here's the thing. If I am someone who makes miniatures and wants to sell them out to the general public, what incentive do I have to put them in an FLGS versus just sitting them in a storage room until they're ready to ship out? The answer is that it's really good marketing, because that store is full of people who are there playing. So interestingly, I think things like 3D printing, as far as 3D printing being like a thing that's in everybody's house that they're using, we're, I think, a couple of years off from that. But I think that the other question and concern, I think, is stuff like VR. Because what I've experienced just in the last 15 hours in VR chat is that it's like, oh, this is where D&D is going. This is where all RP is going. And it's relatively in its infancy, I'd say. I don't know. You could do some really, really, really cool stuff in there, and it's only going to get better. And you don't need a VR headset to play, which I did not know until recently. So I would encourage anybody to play it. It's pretty cool. We're years off due to the intelligence level of the average citizen. Yeah, I don't know that it's that much of a problem as more as it's like a cost problem, right? I see something recently that said that it's going to be the idea of the batteries for self-driving semis. It's just so not realistic right now, but that doesn't mean that it's not going to be eventually. Within a couple of years, that battery that is so expensive and so large is going to get smaller and cheaper, just like any of the other ones do. So I don't know that it's so much the tools so much as it is the corporations and how they'll react to said tools. Because if you're an FLGS, I think that what you do to maintain your viability as someone who has those miniatures for people to buy is remaining open by being a third place. Because people are always going to want to play, I think, and in person. So, and there are lots of people that don't want to do that at their house, or don't want to go to a stranger's house. So they have like a public location where you can meet and do that stuff. But that's just like my opinion. So let's go to this last question. And this last question is from Chris. And the follow-up is also from Chris. But let's get into this question first. Oh, forgive me. I need a drink of water. Alrighty. So this last question is from Chris, and Chris asks, so last session, one of my players was rolling badly on Roll20 and actually had a bit of a hissy fit. Insisting on rolling again kind of shocked me. This player had already thrown a bit of a tantrum when I wouldn't let him take his full movement and action through a narrow, already crowded hallway. How do you deal with this during the game? It actually caught me off guard. I've been running for over a year now, and I'm a little shocked how much time and effort I've put into prepping. The player sort of apologized at the end of the session, but it left a slightly bad taste in my mouth. I'm wondering if I have what it takes to be a DM. So first of all, I wouldn't question your abilities as a DM. It sounds like this player was just being a bit of a baby. And I don't know if that's because it's that player's personality. I wouldn't be as quick to judge him as a person based on that one instance. It could be any number of things. Maybe they were just having a bad day. It's unfortunate to hear that the apology was quote unquote sort of, because that to me suggests that you didn't fully accept it, or at least didn't feel that it was fully genuine. I don't know. It's tough. D&D group dynamics can get weird because there's different level. I mean, it depends on how much you know the person and what the context of your relationship with that person is. Like if this is somebody that you've only ever played D&D with and you don't ever talk about anything else or hang out with that person in any other situation, then it's, it's kind of weird. I would say that I would get the idea that you don't have what it takes to be a DM out of your head, because I don't think that's what's going on. I think that you just need to perhaps consider your strategy, and for your sake, not for anyone else's. I don't think that you did anything wrong based on what you've told me. It seems like they were just being kind of a baby, and that can happen. I can be that guy sometimes too, to be a bit of a diva, like, oh, what do you mean I can't do that? What do you mean? I would say that one thing that I've done in the past, and people might not think that this is a great thing, but I'll just say it's something that I've done in the past. Sometimes I'll just kind of like allow them to do whatever it is they're trying to do, and then just kind of let them do it, because what's really fun, I think, a kind of a sort of arguably mean thing and kind of fun thing to do is to just kind of allow them to do whatever it is they're doing, but not such that it really accomplishes much. So, they're like, oh yeah, I'm going to jump through this narrow hallway so that I can get advantage backstab on this thing. And it's like, okay, cool. Yeah, you make it through the hallway. And they're like, oh, okay, cool. And it's like, oh yeah, you don't get advantage though, because of whatever, right? Like, I think it's a matter of, oh, hey, good night, Nebraska. Thanks for hanging out. Always a pleasure. Hope you have a good one. But, I think that it's important to remember that as the DM, you have the ultimate say as to what happens, quote unquote. Obviously, the players drive the story, and I've talked about that before too, right? Like, I don't think that it's the DM's responsibility to drive the story per se. It's their responsibility to referee the world, to referee the story that the players drive. But all of that said, it's the DM's world. It's the DM's rules and story, and they're the ref. So the idea that you would just argue with them until they caved to your will is, I don't know, it's kind of similar to sports, right? You see it with athletes, definitely in basketball. Lots of jawing off at the refs if they think a call is bad or a call didn't happen that they think should have existed. But I mean, no matter how hard LeBron or Steph or any of them scream at the referee, the ref's going to ref. And I think that as a DM, you've got a DM. Now, if it's a scenario where you feel like you don't want to continue because of that player, then that's a separate conversation that you could and should have. But I don't think that the interaction with this player says anything about you as a DM or your capabilities. Sounds like somebody just being a bit of a brat. It happens. And hey, maybe it was anomalous. Who knows? I don't know. Maybe next time they'll show up at the session and be like, hey, listen, last week my goldfish died. I was having a really rough time. You don't know what people are going through. So it could just been that. Oh, I'm sorry to hear that, Cat Jazz, Happy Cat. Well, hey, think about it this way. Think of the good news. You've got more to catch up on once the VOD's available. Once we're done here, you can go back and catch up on what you missed. So that's pretty fun, right? It's almost like a double episode. I'm thinking about if I do, in fact, do something with a Discord, maybe setting up some way where we can kind of hang out post-episode. So, I don't know. We'll see. See if I can figure all of that out. But all that's to say, Chris, I don't think that any of this stuff is on you. I think that this person was just being a bit of a poopy pants. And that's unfortunate. It happens. But I'd say that, yeah, at the end of the day, the DM's word is law. The DM is God for all intents and purposes of the world. Because without the DM, there's no real story other than just players sitting around talking. That's like we were talking about with dice. It's like you can do that if you want to, but you're just telling stories. You're not playing a game. If you don't have a DM, if you don't have some form of chance mechanic, whether it's dice or cards or whatever, you're not playing a game. You're telling stories, which is okay. Stories are cool. Speaking of all of that, too, I think maybe next week I might present it. I don't know. I haven't decided. I have a fantasy novel that I was writing when I was 20. And the only reason that I bring it up is that it's like 150 pages. And some of it, not all of it, is pretty cool. I'm thinking about re-exploring that. Maybe rewriting it even. Expanding it as part of the world. I don't know. We're also given talk and consideration to making sort of a supplement for Mann short stuff. That'd be really cool. And me diving into this world of VR, I think, is going to lend itself and lead itself to lots of cool RP stuff. So I'm looking really forward to it. Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you for the kind words. Now, the follow-up is also from Chris, which I think is interesting considering the question that we just had. But, oh no. Whoa, where did the follow-up go? Oh no. The follow-up's gone. Well, I don't know where it went, but there was a question that Chris followed up on. And in doing so said, my last question about running a 7-player party, whether or not I should split them into 2 games because it's been a lot to keep them together, resolved into me struggling through the cat herding. I think it's been worth it overall, so thank you for urging me to try to keep them. Wow, what just happened with the screen? Thank you for urging me to keep them together. I wanted to recommend a website in case anyone, this is why this is relevant. And I needed to put this in the thing and I didn't. Let me go do that now. Edit, ka-chow, put it in here. Neverwinter guide, because this is a thing that Chris wanted to be included in here. All right, so now I've updated that and it's in the description. So let me read what it actually says. That'd be good, huh? I wanted to recommend a website in case anyone else is terrified of running in a big city. In this case, Neverwinter. Pachow. There's where that thing comes from. That's where that comes in. Especially given how popular the recent D&D movie was/is, this site is a godsend. Not only does this guy have amazing maps and resources and an entire free PDF, he has a Discord, doesn't mind questions. This guide saved my butt when I knew I was going to take 7 players into Neverwinter. So I've put that in the description. Thank you for that, Chris. That'll be, I'm sure, something that people can get a lot of help and tips from. We had a murder hobo in our group. DM tried to get him with a cursed item to make him unable to attack till he was attacked. Dude legit cut off his arm and took permanent disadvantage on all rolls. Yeah, people will do that too. That's a thing. I think that there's this is kind of back to the question, but I think that there's kind of a knee-jerk instinct to kind of shut that behavior down. But, you know, you might consider just kind of letting them go, and then when they get to the end of it, it's like, okay, now what? Like, I think recently to the cat edition, when they keep asking, like, okay, well, what do we do once we catch the dog? It's kind of like that. I think that part of the reason that people ask for things and continue to ask for them, for one, they know that there's a chance that you'll say yes, but I think that the asking and refusal is part of it, maybe, for those kind of people. I'm not saying that this person is that way, but maybe they're just someone who I kind of like to argue. I mean, I do like to argue. So I'm the type of person that'll just like do it just to do it. Maybe they're that way. In which case, give them what they want, and then when they're not satisfied, it's like, well, what do you want me to do? I let you do whatever you wanted me to. The follow-up question that went missing. Yeah, sorry about that, Chris. But hey, I did read it, and I put in the link. So yeah, I don't be so hard on yourself. Everybody's people are we're all hard on ourselves. We're too hard on ourselves, human beings. You know. I was just saying earlier today. I think that people have lots of humans have trauma. Well, first of all, we all have trauma. Just depends on what it looks like. And a lot of us, that trauma is either untreated or unhealed completely. And I think most people are just trying to do the best they can, the best they can. And that's all we can really do. Know what I mean, folks? Make Wile E. Coyote as a D&D character. Oh, that'd be pretty fun. And then the Roadrunner. Some players get resentful if their murder hobo dies or gets jailed. It's as if they think the DM is being controlling, when in reality it's just consequences for their character. Yeah, you're not wrong. But I would say the more hands-off you could be in that approach, the more of an argument you have later when they complain to be like, I don't know why you're upset with me. We did exactly what you wanted to do. You made it through the narrow hallway. You're on the other side now. What do you do? I've had situations where it's just like, because I said so. Sometimes you just have to say that. Have identity campaigns with the sci-fi verse or 5e Star Wars? We did have the one Star Wars campaign that we unfortunately didn't finish. There's about 15 or 17 episodes of that. But listen, gang, next week I'm going to come back with a bunch of information about this VR stuff, because that, I think, is the future. That, I think, is the future of what D&D and RP in general is going to look like. I am astonished that more people are not involved with it and getting into it. It's very likely because people assume you have to have a VR headset. I assumed that. But in fact, you don't have to have one. In fact, I'm learning that it serves you better to just play it on PC. It's free download. So, and it's a fun hang. That's another reason not to try and solve out-of-game issues with in-game actions. Well, yeah, but I mean, again, is it an out-of-game issue, or is the person just behaving that way because their character behaves that way? Depends on what it is. Sentiment analysis and other ways of gauging feedback to improve output. You will soon get much better results than what people can make with a much wider variety. Oh, most definitely. You think art and music are already seeing major impacts there? AI for generating images that are quite stout, and the ones for music are getting better. Yeah, I think there's always going to be a market for quote-unquote real music, art, any, you name it. Now, again, it's a problem when you're talking about corporations. Listen, when money is the most important thing, money's the most important thing. So corporations aren't going to care that they're laying off 10 million employees or whatever it is. They're not going to give a shit. They're going to do what makes them the most money. So when it comes to like mass produced stuff, sure, we're going to see, I mean, I don't know if we'll ever, once we see a real commercial again. They very well will all just be AI generated. Obviously, the one, I don't know if anybody's seen the one that's going around. Obviously, it's really rudimentary and it's goofy. But, I mean, I think it's incredibly impressive. And when you consider where it's going to be in 2-3 years, it's just going to be all it is, folks. You assume VR chat was sort of all erotic role play. Not in my experience. It's just a bunch of people kind of hang. I mean, I'm sure that there are people on there that use it for that, but just like anything else, you can kind of create your own world. There's a little bit of a learning curve, it seems, to creating, but it's not terribly steep. And it seems to be pretty open source in that regard. So I think that's going to be the new thing. I think that instead of people saying follow me on Twitter or follow me on Instagram, it's going to be like, come join my world. Once we all get VR. All right, geez, we are over, folks. We are in extra innings. We're already into overtime. I can't believe it. This thing goes by faster every week, I swear. So just another reminder before we get the heck out of here. Please send your questions, comments, concerns, complaints to bardadvice@gmail.com. I'll do my best to read them, go over them, and hopefully we'll check them out and go over them on the show. I appreciate everybody showing up here every week. I've had a lot of fun doing it. We're on episode 21. Can you believe it? I can't believe we've already done 20, and now we've done 21. And yeah, it's not so much a time limit as I'm married to the hour as much as it's just I've got other stuff I need to do. I've got editing that I need to go do. I got to go explore VR world so I can figure that out more and notify you, and I'll keep you updated about it next week. Thank you again all for hanging out. I will be back next week, same Bard time, same Bard channel, 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on the Mann Shorts YouTube channel. The audio for this podcast will be available tomorrow at 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I hope you all have a magnificent weekend, and I will see you next time. Have a good one.